Hello and welcome to Cataclysm University. My name is Vormithrax and this is course number 2 where we will be talking about the menu options and settings. So the game can be a little intimidating at first. There are a number of different menu options and settings, and especially the very first time you launch the game there's going to be some confusion because you're going to have a tiny window that you're looking at. It won't be the full screen view that you're seeing on my screen right now, and I'll show you where and how you can change that in just a moment, but that's what this course is going to cover. So when you first open it up, you'll have a smaller version of this window that you're looking at here, and you use the arrow keys to navigate most of the menu systems in Cataclysm. So the only thing the mouse is used for is kind of a mouse look option. Once you're in game, you can point at things and a little mouse window tooltip will pop up giving you information and details about it, but beyond that it doesn't have any direct uses. So it's a keyboard-driven game, so I'm going to cover some of the common keyboard commands and a few that are of particular note here in this menu system. And I'll mention them when we get to them so you can see what I mean and how to get past that section. So let's just cover the real basics first. We got a message of the day, new game options, load, world, special, settings, help, credits, and quit. And the ones we're going to go into first are settings. So you use the arrow keys. I'm just using the left and right arrow key to move between the options, pressing enter to select it, and another menu pops open. Then again, you can use the arrow keys, and I'm going to go to the options screen. And then again, you can use, whoops, not arrow keys here. So this one you have to use the tab keys to move between. So arrow does not move between these. Arrow is going to be indicating a choice for this line. This indicates what particular line of information that you're interacting with. So you have to use the tab keys now to move between the general categories. So just like that. Alright, now your arrow keys are controlling this part of the menu. Arrow up and down to pick which section you want to look at, and then left and right will change the options for that section. So auto pickup, if I hit the right arrow, it switches from false to true. Alright, so that's kind of how the menu system works. There are a few other menu key commands that you need to know about, and we'll get to those in just a minute. But that's how you move through the menu options. So in this general section, there's a lot of good information in here. The only things to know initially are the choose sound pack option, and you can set your volumes. I would leave most of the rest of this alone until you're a little more familiar with the game. You can highlight a section and it'll give you a description up here telling you what the section is about and what values are valid within that section. You can also pick a specific number, for example, on the volume. If I wanted to pick a volume, I could either use the arrow key to increment or decrement the list, or I can press enter, delete what's there, and then type in a new number. So a couple of ways to do that. So just change the sound pack and the volumes and leave the rest alone until you're a little more familiar with the game. Feel free to set these however you're comfortable with once you know what they mean and what they do. Next up we have the interface. When you very first start the game, this is really the first place you're going to want to go. So interface and graphics are pretty important. Actually, it's the graphics page that you're going to head to first, but this again is similar to that other screen where a lot of good choices here that will affect how information is displayed in your game, and different formats for temperature units and speed units and so on. When you've got time, go ahead and kind of slowly scroll through this list and watch the information up here to get an idea of what it represents. But again, I would probably leave it on the default settings initially, and then you can adjust these to your comfort later. Alright, for the graphics section, the most important part right away is when you've got that little tiny window that opened up the very first time you ran this game. If you come to this section, the options and then graphics column, you've got terminal width and terminal height. And if you look at the descriptions up above, you can see what's happening here. With the terminal width, and the terminal represents the full screen that you're using to view this game in. So initially these numbers are going to be pretty small, so you're going to have this tiny little window if you're running on a high-def monitor. So terminal width, if we set this to 240, you'll note here that at the 240 value, the window will be 1920 pixels wide. So that's what I want. I run my monitor at 1920 by 1080. So 240 for terminal width will provide you with a 1920 wide display. Then switch down to terminal height, and you can see the window will be 1072. Now because of the structure of the program and the way it displays information, you can't get it to 1080. If you try to increase that one more point, you get 1088, and you'll have some part of the screen not visible at one time. So I would recommend just leave it on 1072. So on a normal 1920 by 1080 monitor, these I believe are the best settings to use. Depending on your monitor, your resolution, and your settings, you'll need to adjust these two numbers to whatever is comfortable for you. And just watch this here to see what the width and the height that it's going to display at are. Alright, once you set those, you do have to exit out of the menu, save your changes, quit the program, and then relaunch it. And after you've done that, your screen will look like mine. It'll be nice and full screen, and it won't be that tiny box anymore. Alright, the other major thing I wanted to discuss here was the tile set choice. So this is where you can choose the tile set, which sets basically the graphics. Instead of just the ASCII text and letters and numbers and symbols, this will actually set the graphics that you're seeing in the videos for most players of Cataclysm. I know there are some folks that prefer the ASCII graphics. I think they're crazy, but they can have fun with it that way if they'd like. I prefer tile sets myself. The default one I tend to choose is this chest hole 32 tile set. But you can see up here a list of the other tile sets that are available. Feel free to work your way through that list and find things that you like. There's a lot of different versions, and some of them are more up-to-date than others, so you'll just kind of have to pick one. If it doesn't have a particular graphics for a symbol, then you'll just see the original symbol in its place. So it won't break anything, it just won't look quite right if it's missing graphics for the various items and monsters and so on. But you can check the forums and such to get up-to-date information on some of these tile sets. But for now, I would just recommend Chest Hole 32. It'll match what you see on a lot of YouTubers using for the game, so it'll be somewhat familiar. The rest of the options, I don't know that I would recommend you change. Again, there's some information in here you can adjust, but carefully read the descriptions and be careful when you're playing around with them to remember to set them back again if you really mess something up. Some of the things you can change in here can really change how things display. That's pretty much it for that section, and interface and graphics are the main ones that you would go to in here. We're going to go ahead and exit out of here. Okay, some of these others I would recommend you just kind of take a look at. I'm not going to cover them in detail in this particular course. I just want to cover a couple of other really important parts. So that covers the big things in settings. Help credits and quit are fairly obvious. You can explore those on your own. Special has a few things. There is some tutorial information and information about defense there. Can be useful for brand new players, or you can watch videos to pick some details up as well. The world is where you go to create and set up the rules for the world you're going to play in. The way it works is you first create a world. You designate what the settings for that environment will be for various difficulty factors, what mods will be enabled for that game world, and so on. After you've created that world setting, then you can go to the new game option and actually create characters. And that's where you pick from these choices to create characters. So I do want to cover something in the Create World menu. So it's a little confusing, and a lot of brand new players get totally stuck on this screen for one important reason. I've mentioned the nesting method that they use for moving around these menus. If I use the up and down arrow, you can see the little gold symbol here moving between the choices, where I can pick things to add or subtract from the mods that I'm going to have in the world. Now, notice here that we've got another layer of the menuing. This is where the tab key is going to come in. If I hit tab, I can move between these three. Okay, that's great. That's all stuff we've done before, but how do I move between these options up here? Well, these symbols here give you the hint, which is a very, very obscure hint. But basically, if you press these keys on your keyboard, the greater than or less than symbol, that will move between these tabs. So once you have set your mods from the available mods over to the active mods, or I'm sorry, available to the active on the right, then you can switch to the world options by pressing the greater than symbol, or less than to move back again. So very common for brand new players to get totally stuck on this, because knowing to hit greater than, less than is not spelled out anywhere, it's not mentioned anywhere. You really don't get a clue about that unless you just hit every key on the keyboard or you've seen some reference like this to help you. So that's how you move between these menus. And you can again set a bunch of different world generation options. This is information that takes a little more time than I'm going to spend in this particular coursework to go through and discuss all of these various choices. But one of the great things about Cataclysm is this variability. You've got a ton of different ways of modifying your game world to suit your playstyle and your desire for a challenge. So carefully scroll through this list sometime and take a look at the information up here. It'll tell you again what that item will actually adjust, as well as the values, the min, max, and what they're going to affect. So feel free to change these however you'd like. If you'd like monsters to be super slow, move their movement speed down to 50% and move their hit points down to 50%. That will give you a much easier early gameplay experience, and then you can move these up as you get better at the game and want more of a challenge. So tons of variability in here that will allow you to adjust the game to your desired difficulty level. So don't be afraid to take advantage of these early game, and then as you gain experience and get better at the game, you can feel free to ratchet up the difficulty to really put the hurt on yourself. Alright, and then last you can just go to the finalize world option and move on from there. So after you've got your world created, you can then go to the new game, go through the character selection screens, and I'm not going to go into these in detail either. This mainly is just a course on how to navigate through the initial interface and the menu options. You can create random characters, preset characters that you've saved before, or do a custom brand new character that you're going to fully design yourself. You pick which world he's going to belong in, and then you can launch from there. So, I think that'll cover all the topics I wanted to cover in this particular episode, so I hope you found the information helpful. I do look forward to seeing you in future courses, and if you've got further questions about this topic or any of the others in the series, please do visit my Discord channel. That would be the best place for any additional conversations where I can help you out and answer questions, or if I'm not available at that time, I've got lots of other folks there that would be happy to jump in and answer questions as well. So it should be a great resource for new players to get up on the game. So I hope you found this helpful, and I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.